Hey everyone, in this video we're going to look at some techniques that we can use to help us ask more interesting questions. Have you ever gone home from a hard day's work or a tough day at school, only to walk in the door and be greeted by the question, "How was your day?" And you try to muster up an answer as best you can, but nothing comes out. Maybe one word. Fine, okay, not bad, the same as always. Right? You try to put on a smile, you try to grin and bear it, but a lot of the times that sort of questioning leads to a bad answer. All right, so the best way that you can have a good conversation with your family, right? Your husband, your wife, your children, students at school, people that you care about. The best way to have a good conversation is to ask good questions. The best way to elicit an interesting response is to have an interesting prompt. So in this video, I'm going to show you a few different techniques and a few different ideas about how you can approach this conversation, how you can look at a topic, how you can look at a simple object from everyday life and make up some really interesting questions. Today, we're going to focus our conversation on apples. Not only because it begins with the first letter of the alphabet, but because there's an old saying that goes, "Every thought is a seed. If you plant crab apples, don't count on harvesting golden delicious." And I really think this applies to conversations as well. If you have good questions, you'll get good answers. The older and more mature I get, the more frequently I find myself in the driver's seat of conversation. And the more responsibility I feel to drive to a worthy destination. So, these days, one thing that I try to do is to prepare my questions and then really think about that question before I ask it. So, let's take this apple for example. When you look at this picture, what type of questions can you think of? What pops into your mind? Now, as a teacher and a parent to young children, all the basics pop into my mind. What is it? What color is it? How do you spell it? How many letters are in the word apple? What does it begin with? What letter does it end with? How many vowels are there? How many consonants are there? Etc., etc. You could also ask some close-ended or forced choice questions, like, do you like apples? Which color apple is your favorite? Do you like to eat apples or drink apple juice? Right? These are just a little bit more difficult and require a little bit more back and forth. They also open you up for follow-up questions, and that's the lifeblood of conversation. And those follow-up questions lead to more intense, thoughtful, and interesting questions like these. If you could eat only one fruit for the rest of your life, what would you choose? What's the most beautiful looking fruit? Is the juice really worth the squeeze? Do you think fresh, homemade, hand-squeezed juice is worth all the effort? What fruit is the hardest to get, right? Costs the most, it's hard to find, difficult to prepare, but most worth it? What food pairs best with what fruit? Do you like apples and peanut butter? Do you like a ham sandwich with pear? Skin on or skin off? What's your favorite apple byproduct? Apple juice? Apple cider? Apple cobbler? Pie? Do you usually bite into an apple or slice it up to eat it? What do you think makes some apples naturally red and others naturally green? What causes apples to turn brown? Do you know any famous apple idioms, expressions, or quotations? So as you can see from my examples, there are no boring topics, just boring questions. So the lesson that I want you to take is this. If you don't want to be the boring person, stop asking boring questions. Take some time and think about the questions you're going to ask before you ask them. If you see your children every day after school and ask them, "Hi kids, how was school today?" It doesn't matter if you're in a great mood, if you're chipper, if you're all smiles. If you ask that same boring question every single day, eventually, the kids are going to get tired of answering it. I know I would. So you've got to think about their day and think about what could have been interesting. So instead of "How was your day?" you might say, "Good afternoon, kids. Tell me about the best part of your day. Tell me about something that made you smile. Tell me about something that made you think. What class was really hard today? Did anyone make you feel bad? Did anyone cry at school today? What was the best part of lunch? What subject did you have today that was more interesting than it normally is?" These questions beg for explanations. And if you ask these types of questions, you'll get much better answers. So, my challenge, give it a try tonight and let me know how it goes. Goodbye.